Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family and new viewers from all over the world. Many things to discuss tonight. A major escalation in the war in Ukraine. Russia has launched major attacks as a response to Ukrainian attacks, and now Ukraine is responding tonight with more attacks. We'll bring you up to date. And this is the biggest air attack on Ukraine, and now the biggest counter offensive or reaction or whatever you want to call it, probably since the beginning of the conflict. What else is going on tonight? They are really ramping things up against Donald Trump. You're seeing it on multiple fronts. Maine now taking Donald Trump off the ballot for the primary, following the lead from Colorado, where Trump has been off the ballot. Then yesterday, we're hearing he's back on the ballot technically until a Supreme Court ruling on what's going on in Colorado. This is lawfare on steroids. This is viewed by many as election interference. Donald Trump has come right out and is calling it election theft. The situation in the Middle East, Israel and Hamas, is also escalating. And the politics surrounding all of that is also something that definitely needs attention, with Vivek Ramaswamy coming out with a statement saying that the two-state solution is really just a myth. We'll play you his clip. We'll share his comments with you. And it really is, I think, the boldest statement that I've heard thus far from any presidential contender. Ramaswamy being brutally honest in his view on this. And it's strangely refreshing to hear his take on it. I have to say, it was surprising to hear him just come out and be so blunt. When you hear what he has to say, you'll understand, I think, why I'm reacting the way that I am. So yeah, we have Russia on this full offense, and we have also Joe Biden issuing a response to that. You can tell that he's getting agitated, just a little bit agitated, President Biden. And then we also have a comment tonight from General Keith Kellogg, who is saying things would be a whole lot different right now if Donald Trump was still in the White House. Also, we're hearing that there's a new New York Times poll out that says Trump is now viewed by the majority of Americans as the return to normalcy candidate. That's the way a lot of people view him. This after Joe Biden has had a few years now to stabilize the country, and that has not happened. We have actually just the opposite, don't we? Oh, yes, we do. The country has never been more unstable, except maybe during the Civil War. And even then, I'm not so sure. because I think we're heading down that path anyway. We also have a clip from Sheena Bellows, Secretary of State, and talking about the decision to keep Trump off the ballot. So we'll bring you up to date with that. And actually, it's from we're going to share with you a Zoom type meeting or a C-SPAN broadcast with a staffer from that office talking about how the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center are actively working to push ahead and promote these attempts to keep Trump off the ballot in various states. It's the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center and some of the people, the leaders within those organizations who appear to be behind this effort. So we'll share those comments with you tonight, and then you can assess for yourself from that point. So there's all that, and we have more lined up as well. So don't go away, because we have a stacked show for you. We'll be back right after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So tonight, what we're dealing with here is a major escalation in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. It really started to ramp up earlier this week with a report, well, not just a report, but an actual attack by Ukraine, striking the port of Feodosia in Crimea. There was a fire, a massive explosion. There was actually a ship that was there that was damaged. And this was earlier in the week. We know from reports on the ground there that 2 Ukrainian Su-24s armed with missiles struck the port. They fired and hit a large landing craft that was actively firing, and the ship was apparently sunk. Not quite clear on that, but it may not have actually gone down, but it was certainly hit and damaged. There was at least one person killed, 2 others injured in that attack, 6 buildings damaged, a lot of broken windows. The roads and other infrastructure there intact enough that transportation has not been, affected that much. But that ship was definitely damaged. During the anti-aircraft battle, 2 Ukrainian Su-24s that were launching missiles were destroyed by Russian air defense systems. That information coming from the Russian Ministry of Defense. And we have video that we can share with you right now from that event earlier this week. And I play this first because it's a prelude. It was a prelude to everything that has been unfolding over the last, let's say 24 to 48 hours, 24 in the most major way. Let me show you the attack in Crimea from earlier this week, first of all. So we were able to source that from the internet. Not widely seen, that particular footage. But it didn't stop there. Not by a long shot. So what we've seen since then is a major attack by Russia on Ukraine. In response, largely to what Ukraine unleashed. And so this is a major turn of events, indicating that Russia is still, and I think, in a dominant position. It was a staggering assault on Ukrainian soil, a barrage of 122 missiles and 36 drones targeted various locations, resulting in some loss of life. As of now, at least 30 civilians have been confirmed dead. Over 144 people sustaining injuries. The sheer magnitude of the onslaught, spanning approximately 18 hours, has certainly left a mark on Ukraine. And what is left in the wake of this is, a lot of broken glass, twisted metal. As I say, some casualties, plumes of smoke in the sky. Ukrainian Air Force officials still putting up a brave front. They claim to have intercepted the majority of the incoming missiles and drones, but the toll in terms of damage to infrastructure and collateral damage is undeniable. As I was saying earlier this weekend, have been saying for at least 2 weeks now, as we've watched troops being repositioned, Russian troops being repositioned, and then Ukrainian troops taking up, and I would say even retreating and then fortifying defensive positions. As I indicated, even just over 2 weeks ago, and since then, it looks to me like Russia is in the dominant position and could be finally poised to take additional territory, maybe even take the whole thing if they wanted to. I just don't think Vladimir Putin is interested in occupying the entire country. But if strategically that is what needs to be done to bring this thing to an end, I think Russia may actually be in a position to start working on getting that done. This is the biggest development in the war in terms of escalation activity and change in, I guess, claimed territory since last October, probably last October. So the Russian assault was described by Ukrainian Air Force commanders as the most massive aerial attack since the full-scale invasion or special military operation launch, depending on how you look at it, since February of 2022. And it goes on. And now, as a result of that, Ukraine has been hitting back. We are getting, right now, reports of additional attacks against Russia being launched by Ukraine. We have some video to share with you as well. But before we get to that footage, I want to share with you the statement that has been issued by Joe Biden in response to the Russian attacks overnight. Here's Joe Biden's statement. It says, this from Joe Biden's desk, overnight, Russia launched its largest aerial assault on Ukraine since the war began. This massive bombardment used drones and missiles, including missiles with hypersonic capability to strike cities and civilian infrastructure all across Ukraine. Strikes reportedly hit a maternity hospital, a shopping mall, and residential areas, killing innocent people and injuring dozens more. It is a stark reminder, Biden says here, to the world that after nearly 2 years of this devastating war, Putin's objective remains unchanged. He seeks to obliterate Ukraine and subjugate its people. He must be stopped, says Joe Biden. In the face of this brutal attack, he goes on, Ukraine deployed the air defense systems that the United States and our allies and partners have delivered to Ukraine over this past year to successfully intercept and destroy many of the missiles and drones. The American people can be proud of the lives we have helped to save and the support we have given Ukraine as it defends its people, its freedom, and its independence. But unless Congress takes urgent action in the new year, we will not be able to continue sending the weapons and vital air defense systems Ukraine needs to protect its people. Congress must step up and act without any further delay. The stakes of this fight extend far beyond Ukraine. They affect the entirety of the NATO alliance, the security of Europe, and the future of the transatlantic relationship. Putin has not just attempted to destroy Ukraine, he has threatened some of our NATO allies as well. When dictators and autocrats are allowed to run roughshod in Europe, the risk rises that the United States gets pulled in directly. And the consequences reverberate around the world. That's why the United States has rallied a coalition of more than 50 countries to support the defense of Ukraine. We cannot let our allies and partners down. We cannot let Ukraine down. History will judge harshly those who fail to answer freedom's call. That from the desk of the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Additional reports coming out within the last day that a peace deal was within reach back in April between Ukraine and Russia. Had it not been for the intervention of the UK and the United States, telling Zelensky no. And these reports allege that there was essentially influence exerted with money and arms. And since last October, it has been pretty much a stalemate, but now things are really ramping up, as we've seen with that footage we just showed you earlier this weekend. Now, tonight, we are seeing new footage rolling in with now more attacks on Russia by Ukraine. Let me share what we have been able to find for you and what has been sent to us this evening. So this footage is from the Russian city of Belgorod, which is apparently taking one heck of a beating. Here's what it looks like in the dark. Yes, and having to live under that, I guess more accurately, trying to survive that, has got to be terrifying for people. Ukraine unleashing its own hellfire even as we speak. And we are seeing additional reports of drones striking Bryansk, Russia tonight. Apparently, this attack was directed at a factory that produces electronics and radio equipment. And let me share this with you. And this is what it looks like there.
Долетел.
You see the flash, the explosions.
Долетел.
So that from the distance, and the conflict there continues, and we will continue to follow this story and update you as we get more information, possibly during this broadcast, as things are sent to us, or as things pop up in our feeds. So there's more to come on that front for sure. So let's take a quick break here. I'm going to regroup and get our next series of clips lined up so that we can continue with this newscast and analysis right here on the Maverick News Channel.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now, at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program. For your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And continuing our coverage of the conflict in Ukraine, we have this footage as well of a Russian missile hitting a high rise in Kiev, or Kiev, depending on how you view Ukraine, which way you choose to pronounce it. And here's what that looks like.
Я себе, ебать, нихуя себе. Я себе.
Interesting. Massive explosion. And yet it didn't come tumbling down, even with a missile strike. Still standing. Isn't that interesting? The United States is still standing as a country tonight. But it seems not everybody is happy about that. Within the last day, we've seen more protests, more pro-Palestinian protests, more anti-Israel protests. Most notable, I think, is probably this protest that took place at, of all places, the World Trade Center. This has touched a nerve with many people. Pro-Palestinian protesters protesting on what many would consider to be sacred ground, considering the lives that were lost on 9/11. But here it is. Here's what some of that looked like from the past 24 hours in New York City. Well, the situation in the Middle East is I don't know what to tell you other than it's more volatile than ever. And there does not appear to be a solution in sight. That being said, Vivek Ramaswamy, presidential hopeful, rival to former President Trump for the nomination, although you might say he's sort of a Trump ally because he's supporting Trump and calling foul on these attempts to keep him off the ballot in some states, including Maine now. But Ramaswamy has come out with what I can only say is one of the most controversial statements on the conflict, and I would say one of the most honest assessments thus far. And when I say honest, I mean, I think he is speaking his mind without fear. He is speaking from a position of geopolitical creativity. And I haven't analyzed what he has said in depth enough to really have a fully formed opinion on his opinion. But I have to say, it's refreshing to hear someone speaking boldly. And I think even hearing someone say something that is different than what is just being echoed over and over and over again, but is not actually getting us anywhere. Oh, we need a two-state solution. Ramaswamy says a two-state solution is, in his view, a myth. A myth. Let me play his clip. This surprised me. I was not aware that he had taken this kind of position, but it's just straight up. There's no dancing around this. Listen to what he says here. This coming from Forbes.
My view is that now is the moment for Israel to return to its founding premise. The Jewish state has an absolute right to exist. A divine gift, gifted to a divine nation, charged with a divine purpose. Israel has an absolute and unequivocal right and responsibility to defend itself to the fullest, applying the only language that its adversaries understand, the language of force. So what would David Ben-Gurion say today? He would say, don't depend on anybody else's fleeting sympathies or permission to do it. If Israel wants to destroy Hamas, Israel should go ahead and destroy Hamas. I'm just getting started. If Israel wants to destroy Hezbollah, Israel should go ahead and destroy Hezbollah. If Israel and Mossad want to pull off Munich 2.0 and take out every last leader of Hamas, wherever they may be hiding, from Doha to Dresden, host a red wedding at the Four Seasons in Qatar, the next time Haniyeh and Mashal show up, they should go ahead and do it. If Israel wants to, at long last, abandon the myth of a two-state solution, Israel should go ahead and abandon a two-state solution. The rest of the Arab world can absorb Palestinians just as the Jews absorbed their people out of 22 countries they were kicked out of since 1948. The Islamic world cannot continue to condone the slaughtering of Jews while continuing to disown the Palestinians. That is the hard truth, that neither member of either political party is willing to speak out loud to the Arab world. I will. But these are decisions for Israel to make. America. I am not running for president of Israel. I am running for president of the United States. And just as it is time for Israel to return to its founding premise, it is time for us here in the U.S. to return to ours.
You know, the rhetoric that I've been hearing from the pro-Palestinian side has escalated to the point where some people are coming right out and saying the United States does not have a right to exist. That the Western countries do not have a right to exist. Colonialism. Israel does not have a right to exist. These are actual words that people are saying. So much for a two-state solution. Dangerous times. I'm not sure where that leaves us exactly, but last night we ran clips from General Michael Flynn saying that someone on the Israeli side needs to be held accountable for the October 7th attack because the security was breached, which resulted or allowed the Hamas attackers, terrorists, to enter and kill over 1,200 people, and then say that Arab countries don't want to take the Palestinians who are being displaced by Israel's ground assault in Gaza because, according to General Flynn, any country that takes those Palestinians in will be taking in extremists, terrorists. He didn't use those words. He said they will be getting the same problems in their countries that they have right now, that Israel has. So that's why nobody wants to take them in. But sounding the alarm, saying that Netanyahu wants the West to absorb those Palestinian refugees. We have a Palestinian refugee crisis on our hands, folks, as the death toll in Gaza continues to rise. But keep in mind that Hamas still has hostages in custody. And we have been told, and it has been stated, that to end the conflict, all that has to happen is for Hamas to lay down its weapons and release the hostages, and the hostilities can come to an end. Believe it, don't believe it. That's what was said. Neither side trusts the other. And the tragedy continues to evolve, develop. President of Egypt coming right out and saying Egypt doesn't want the Palestinians. So even though Ramaswamy is now saying that Arab countries should be absorbing these Palestinian refugees, it is very apparent that these Arab countries don't want them. And what are we seeing here in the West? Well, I know here in Canada, the Canadian government is already poised, ready to take more Palestinian immigrants in response to this. We've heard maybe as many as 500,000. We'll see if that happens. But don't be surprised if it does. As a result, Canadian immigration levels could rise this year to well over 1 million. I'm predicting that they will take many of these people from Palestine. And I think that overall immigration record levels could rise to a record 1.4 to 1.5 million people in Canada, a country with less than 40 million people in total. The fabric of Canada is changing. The demographics of Western countries changing because of all this immigration. Now, all that being said about Netanyahu, I also find it interesting that these quotes being attributed to him about absorbing Palestinian refugees are just quotes. I have not seen yet a clip of him actually saying that in the meeting where he is purported to have said that. I am reading various accounts of that, and I think honestly that what he said is being used opportunistically and maybe with some liberties being taken with the context. Not that it's being taken entirely out of context, if indeed he actually said it. But based on some of the reports that I'm seeing, it is being used as an extension of this narrative that suggests Israel let, or maybe even choreographed, the attack on October 7th so that Israel gets the blame for the attack on its own people. And I'm not buying into that. We hear too much of that rhetoric. It's always the United States and Israel being blamed for anything bad that happens to itself. It's always America doing it to itself, when clearly, quite often, it isn't. And it has escalated to the point where this kind of double reverse logic, negative narrative, it's just gotten to the point where now people are cheerleading for people who want to kill them. It's just bizarre. When I'm seeing that happen, it's very clear to me that people are being subjected to unprecedented levels of propaganda and information warfare, to the point where they basically want to commit political suicide, or maybe even cultural suicide, or maybe even just suicide in some cases, honestly. It defies logic. That being said, here's the president of Egypt saying, yeah, we're not going to take them. And if he doesn't want them, who does? And should they come to North America? Should they come to Canada? Should they come to the United States? Listen to what he has to say, and then think it over a little bit here. He says they can send them back to, and I'll read along with this to help keep this understandable, not just for people viewing on our video feed, but also on our podcast as well. Send them back to Gaza if you want, located. Operation might take years. It remains vague, and terrorists still haven't been defeated. We haven't finished the task yet. Egypt can't bear the consequences of this conflict and turn Sinai into a base for launching terrorist attacks against Israel, and we in Egypt would be held responsible, and the peace we've worked so hard to achieve would swiftly dissipate in the name of resolving the Palestinian cause. They can. So, you see what he's saying? If they send the Palestinians there, he expects that they will continue to work against Israel, even from then within Egypt, and because they're within Egyptian borders. If they were to escalate things or conduct the same kind of activities, Egypt would then be held responsible. And what are we seeing in the streets? We're seeing more and more protests. We are seeing even protests at the World Trade Center, and even outright calls for the destruction of America from people living in America, who technically then would be American citizens. You know, for the survival of a nation, that might end up being a bit of a problem in the end. Just saying. Just saying. Might want to think it over a little bit while I run this, and we'll come back on the other side and we'll talk more about Trump.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And here's General Keith Kellogg saying that if Trump were still in office, all of this conflict that we're seeing in Ukraine, and I'm thinking also in the Middle East, probably would not be happening. Interesting comments right here.
7 October. They've totally misread the situation, and it puts all of our young men and women at risk. They know they're basically targets sitting on the ground. We haven't responded in a way that should be disproportional and making those hard calls. Kaylee, you and I have sat side by side in the Situation Room when a lot of those hard decisions were made. We know how hard they are, but you have to make them. Donald Trump made them. He was very effective at it, and then we need to do that again.
General Kellogg, just a few moments here, but would the world look a little different if former President Trump was current President Trump?
Oh, 100%. You wouldn't have had what happened in Ukraine. You wouldn't have what happened in the Middle East. We would have solved that problem easily with the Abraham Accords, and everybody in the world knows it.
With Kayleigh McEnany on Fox News. And Trump under serious pressure here tonight, still ongoing, this lawfare, the latest in this constitutional drama, is echoing through the hollowed halls of American democracy tonight. In a twist of fate, 2 states now, Maine and Colorado, have declared Donald Trump ineligible to once again ascend to the presidency. The repercussions of this decision are poised to dance upon the grand stage of the U.S. Supreme Court, where the justices may find themselves entangled in a legal and political quagmire they'd likely prefer to avoid. Further complicating things here is that yesterday we reported that in Colorado, Secretary of State indicated Trump will actually remain on the ballot, technically, but they're trying to expedite a ruling from the Supreme Court, federally, to determine if Trump will actually end up being on the ballot. So he's technically still on the ballot, but not on the ballot in Maine, possibly still not on the ballot in Colorado if the ruling comes back against Trump. Trump's campaign, undeterred by last week's ruling from the Colorado Supreme Court, is set to mount an immediate appeal following Thursday's decision by Maine's top election official. Both courts cite the 14th Amendment, invoking its formidable powers to disqualify Trump due to his alleged role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Despite being on the ballot for next year's GOP presidential primary in both states, a temporary pause has been granted to allow the higher echelons of the judiciary to intervene. Secretary of State Sheena Bellows of Maine, a Democrat, expressed her preference for U.S. Supreme Court guidance on this unprecedented constitutional question, acknowledging the weight of the decision. She says she was duty bound to make under Maine law. Maine's election law a unique outlier, permits any registered voter to challenge a candidate's eligibility, requiring a public hearing and a swift decision. In this case, 3 voters challenged Trump, prompting a hearing last week and a decision deadline by the end of this week. Bellows, cognizant of the national maelstrom her decision has ignited, recognizes the historical gravity. She notes that no Secretary of State has previously denied a presidential candidate ballot access under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, highlighting the exceptional circumstances surrounding Trump's alleged engagement in insurrection, their word. The legal battle now shifts to the Maine Superior Court, where Trump's campaign plans to appeal Bellow's decision. The court is mandated to render a decision by January 17th, with potential avenues for further appeals to the Maine Supreme Judicial Court or the U.S. Supreme Court. In a landscape marked by legal inconsistency, with courts in other states affirming Trump's right to be on the ballot, the call for a broad U.S. Supreme Court ruling addressing the 14th Amendment question becomes increasingly urgent. Michael Waldman of the Brennan Center for Justice emphasizes the need for a national decision to prevent chaos at the polls. This case presents a complex tapestry of legal questions, including the factual inquiry into whether Trump engaged in insurrection on January 6th. He has not been convicted of that. As the wheels of justice turn, the eyes of the nation are fixed on the Supreme Court, which in moments of historical significance has proven its ability to rule swiftly and sometimes to make a choice where they do not deal with particular cases. The repercussions of Secretary Bellow's decision have drawn both condemnation and applause, with Republicans like Senator Susan Collins criticizing the interference of a Secretary of State appointed by the legislature. Meanwhile, a Maine Republican lawmaker contemplates an improbable impeachment effort against Bellows. Amidst the political cacophony, voices within the Democratic Party diverge. Representative Jared Golden, who voted to impeach Trump, disagrees with Bellows' decision, arguing that Trump should remain on the ballot until found guilty of insurrection. Representative Dean Phillips from Minnesota goes further, condemning efforts to suppress candidates through the legal system. So as this drama unfolds, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CREW, as it's known, applauds Bellow's decision while acknowledging the ultimate authority of the U.S. Supreme Court. In a strategic move, CREW formally urges the top court to expedite the Colorado case, seeking a decision by February to impact upcoming Republican presidential primaries. So stay tuned, folks. America is on the cusp of perhaps the most consequential, certainly the most dramatic election in U.S. history, as this constitutional saga hurtles towards the highest court in the land. The echoes of history reverberate, and the fate of Donald Trump's political future truly does hang in the balance. So too does the future of the United States itself.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And the PR baffle gab, the information warfare continues to escalate as well. Over on ABC News, they have some former Trump administration officials who were there only for a short time when Trump was in power. And then they ended up resigning. They're sounding the alarm, saying that if Trump returns to the White House, it could be the end of democracy as we know it in the United States. 3 women who served in the Trump White House are sounding this alarm. Alyssa Faith Griffin, Cassidy Hutchinson, and Sarah Matthews, in an interview with ABC News chief Washington correspondents and This Week co-anchor Jonathan Karl, said that Trump is a threat to democracy. Griffin, Hutchison, and Matthews all cooperated with the House January 6th committee investigation into Trump following the 2020 election. And I have a clip from that interview here. And man, you want to talk about politics? This is politics. This is serious politics. But this is anti-Trump propaganda for sure coming from ABC. Let's let it roll.
In your mind, if Donald Trump became president again, what would a second Trump term look like?
Fundamentally, a second Trump term could mean the end of American democracy as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. We all witnessed him trying to steal a democratic election before and going to historic and unconstitutional lengths to do so. And that just shows that he's willing to basically break every barrier to get into power and to stay into power. But also, I'm very concerned about what the term would actually look like.
We don't need to speculate what a second Trump term would look like because we already saw it play out. To this day, he still doubles down on the fact that he thinks that the election was stolen and fraudulent. And then his rhetoric has just gotten increasingly erratic. I mean, he has literally called for things like doing away with parts of the Constitution, wanting to weaponize the DOJ to enact revenge on his political enemies.
The fact that he feels that he needs to lean into being a dictator alone shows that he is a weak and feeble man who has no sense of character and integrity and has no sense of leadership.
You know, when I think back, when Trump was president, there were times when he could have used a very heavy hand to restore public order. At times, I wondered why he didn't. Remember when they were trying to burn down the church in Washington, D.C.? And then he went and walked across the street to the church and held up the Bible and made that statement. And there were riots going on in Washington. You know, when I look back at times like that, when I look back at the riots in various cities across the United States, the summer of love, Trump could have done a lot more. He could have been very heavy-handed, but he always deferred to governors. He was very careful and measured in his response. Those are not the actions, in my opinion, of a dictator. Those are the actions of someone who is giving serious thought to the use of any kind of force against anyone who is an American citizen, using force against American citizens, even if those citizens are opposed to you as the president. Very measured. Should also point out that during J6, if you recall. He also offered to bring in reinforcements to help police. And it was Nancy Pelosi who said no. So you can assess any way you want, but in my assessment, those are not the actions of a dictator. Now, he did facilitate an accelerated, expedited rollout of the vaccines, but also indicated all through the pandemic that he would prefer for people to have freedom of choice when it comes to these matters. Now, did not take a heavy hand in that regard to ensure that people did have that freedom. Again, he deferred to governors, to people at the state level to make a lot of these decisions. And I would say that that in itself was, in that particular case, a mistake, but also not indicative of a dictator's actions. So these claims from these women on ABC saying that Trump was and would be a dictator, I don't think they're fair. I don't think they're accurate at all. And in addition to that, you really need to look at who these women are and what they really stand for. The one lady there, she is currently a co-host on that ABC television show, The View, which is an anti-Trump cheerleading squad, really, at the end of the day. Even when they bring conservatives on, they're so often anti-Trump. So that is pure propaganda, in my estimation. So what's Trump going to be doing? I don't know. This thing in Maine, just another serious situation for the former president. And, it really comes down to that, this question, right? Who do you believe when it comes to the question of election integrity? And so, depending on which way you answer that question, that determines largely how you view this current situation, doesn't it? So who's the real patriot? Who's really pro-America? When you go back and look at that question, and you come up with whatever answer you come up with, it's easy to see why people are so polarized on that issue and on Donald Trump himself.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
As I was promising, we are keeping a close eye on the developments in both Ukraine and in the Middle East. And we are now seeing that there was an airstrike inside Lebanon now. This one launched against what is reported to be a site that was used as a launch site by Hezbollah to launch attacks against Israel. And here's what that strike looked like just a short time ago. More escalation in this conflict, now directly into Lebanon. Things are changing rapidly over there. It shows how quickly everything can change when it comes to war. And just when one side thinks they've gained ground, the other side strikes back. Very scary stuff. When you look back at everything that has happened over the past year, we are closer to an actual thermonuclear exchange than at any time in human history. A real nuclear war. This situation in the Middle East is really dangerous because it is spilling over now into other countries. We are seeing these ongoing attacks on ships in the Red Sea, merchant vessels now being defended by the United States and allied countries, including Canada. If this continues, folks, we're going to be into a full-blown, very easily into a full-blown kinetic Third World War. We're in a Third World War right now, but it's unconventional. It could easily turn into a global shooting war. Let's pray that it doesn't. Tomorrow we will take a look back at 2023. We'll review all of the things that have developed over the past year that have taken us to this point. The most dangerous place we've ever been as a species. A point of potential self-extermination. And I don't say it lightly. We've been a frog in a pot of boiling water, and they've been turning up the heat slowly over time. We've been allowing it to happen. Although we all sort of feel so powerless, don't we? And with all that being said, we also see politics changing domestically, don't we? And the demographics and mass immigration, and it's putting pressure on all of our infrastructure here, all of our services, including health care. And as a result, a lot of people are not getting the care that they really need. Tonight, we're seeing in Canada, which is held up as an example of what healthcare is supposed to be. Those who believe or yearn for some sort of free, socialized healthcare system point to Canada, and Canada sells itself, or at least the Canadian government and bureaucrats do, around the world as the best healthcare system in the world. And it is simply not true. The system is under immense stress, huge stress. And in British Columbia today, a BC man says his insurance provider has decided to cancel his and his wife's coverage because they failed to disclose a visit to the emergency room to the insurance company nearly 3 years before he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. This gentleman's name is Toby Cleary. He says he's been sort of dropped off the side of a cliff, in his words. And he has spent the last few years receiving chemotherapy treatment at Abbotsford Regional Hospital and Cancer Center. Last September, Cleary and his wife, Danielle, applied for insurance through Manulife. He says the plan included critical illness, disability, and life insurance. Then, on January 5th of last year, Cleary was diagnosed with colon cancer. So this couple decided it was the right time to access the critical illness portion of the package, which provides a lump sum payment if either one were to be diagnosed with an illness covered by the policy, such as cancer. So they submitted their claim, and then they were told they were supposed to give the insurance company access to 10 years of medical records. 6 months later, they received a response from Manulife saying the entire insurance policy was going to be terminated because Cleary's failure to disclose to Manulife that emergency room visit back in 2019 meant that his disclosure was not complete. So according to this letter, Manulife noted the visit included rectal bleeding, no diagnosis, and a referral for a colonoscopy. And the letter went on to state that under the insurance agreement, Cleary signed declaration on March 2nd of 2020, confirming that since the application date of September 17, 2019, he had not had any illness, disorder, injury, operation, or treatment, had not consulted, been examined or treated by a healthcare professional, or being advised to or have a medical appointment or consultation with a healthcare professional that has not yet taken place. So in other words, he signed something, said that he hadn't been assessed for anything like that, but had been to a hospital and did receive an assessment, and left that off the application for insurance. And so they're saying that violated the terms of the agreement, and therefore they're not going to give him any insurance coverage. But Cleary is saying that it was a minor thing, never thought much about it because it would have been so long ago. It was something that was overlooked during the application process, and even though there was rectal bleeding, he was told it was probably due to a hemorrhoid. Now, because of that, it looks like he's not going to have the coverage that he needs moving forward from this private insurance company, which just shows you, honestly, folks, that here's a picture of Mr. Cleary, by the way. It just goes to show you that in Canada, there are limits to how much free healthcare people are provided with. In addition to that, as I've pointed out many times on this program, the great Canadian healthcare system is under such stress, especially funding stress, and there is so much inefficiency in the system that the government has just really resorted to rationing of care in order to rein in costs. Here's a young lady who is not happy at all with the state of care that she is receiving. Because of the extremely long wait times for tests and for care, and the extremely short supply of qualified specialists. Listen to this.
about Canada that no one's really talking about outside of Canada. And like, I know that some people in America are aware of this, right? But anyone talks about Canada, they go, oh, healthcare is free, blah, blah, blah. And I do know that some people are aware, like, well, you do have to wait longer, you know. Ooh, understatement of the century, okay? In Canada, you'll probably die first before you get the help you need. Like, you'll literally, and I'm not joking, that's not me being dramatic. There are doctors that know that if they're handing out certain diagnoses, totally treatable if you do it in time, but they know they're not going to be able to see a specialist in that time. So they just know these people are going to die because they cannot get help. I have been dealing with literally pain in my liver. I can't see a doctor. Can't see a doctor. Doesn't matter what's going on. There just literally aren't enough physicians. It's not that they're picking and choosing and picking poorly. They literally just don't have physicians. There's nobody here. There's nobody here. So you want to come here, you want to be like, oh, I want to get free healthcare. You'll probably die first. Okay. I've been on a wait list for a general practitioner, a GP, for 6 months. And you can't do anything here without a GP. I can't even go to the gynecologist just for a routine exam. And I had precancerous tissue in my cervix, so I have to get checked twice a year. Can't even do that. I can't even do that. I even tried calling like the women's health center that we have here because, like, you know, that they're supposed to be helping people. And they're like, sorry, as of November, we will only be taking appointments through your GP. You need a referral to go see them. So here I am. I have gone to 2 walk-in clinics in the past week to try to get help. They're full. I call as soon as they open because they say, hey, don't come visit us. Call us. We only start answering phones at 8:30. Call us. We'll give you an appointment that day. I called as soon as 8:29, 8:30, called them. As soon as I got there, like, oh, we're full. Full. So if you want to come here, I hope that you are the healthiest person ever and you've never had one single medical problem in your life. If you go to the ER, the only way you're probably going to get seen, you need to seize on the floor. No, seriously, you need to have a seizure. That's a real story that my cousin witnessed. You will not get help here. You won't. I'm literally considering moving back to the United States. You know how bad that is, where I'm considering moving back to the States? Because I'm like, look, if the only thing getting in my way of healthcare is actually just paying someone, I will take medical debt now. I will, because at least I will live. Are you joking me? Anyways,
it just shows you the grass ain't always greener on the other Canadian side.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And while they ration your health care here in Canada, they also reach deeper and deeper into your pocket to take more and more through taxation. And that is what is going to happen in the new year. Come 2024, you're going to see hikes in payroll taxes, carbon taxes, alcohol taxes. Everybody's going to pay more. Higher payroll taxes because the mandatory Canada Pension Plan and employment insurance contributions will rise. That means if you make about, say, $73,200 or more, you're going to end up paying another $347 in payroll taxes. Even more if you make more. That means your tax bill will be well over $5,100. And this is why I really don't want employees anymore. The employer payroll tax is also increasing. See, that's what a lot of people don't understand or realize is that when an employer in this country hires someone, they not only have to pay you your wage, they have to pay a tax on paying you a wage. The federal government is imposing a new tax in the new year called CPP2, Canada Pension Plan 2. The original CCP, or CPP rather, Canada Pension Plan taxes your income up to 6%, up to $68,500. And the new Canada Pension Plan 2 expands that and then adds an additional income tax at 4% up to $73,200. Oh, it's so typically liberal and so typically Trudeau, isn't it? So this is all coming in the new year. Trudeau all the time saying he's working for the middle class, working to make life more affordable. Those are his words. And then he turns around and slaps that carbon tax on, and that's coming. So that means higher prices for gasoline, diesel, and home heating fuels. I shouldn't even laugh. But what else can you do while he's still in power? Ultimately, that results in higher prices across the board. It fuels inflation, this carbon tax, because it increases the cost of fuel for producing things, for transporting goods to market. The costs to trucking companies increases. Higher fuel prices translate into higher prices for everything. So if you slap a carbon tax on fuel, the fuel that's used to produce and transport and even preserve through things like refrigeration, things like food and other consumer goods, then everything's going to go up. So there's an estimate out there from the parliamentary budget officer that the carbon tax is going to cost the average Canadian family almost $1,000 more, at least $900 in the new year. Even after the federal government gives you what they say are rebates on the carbon tax, where Trudeau has essentially lied to people and told everyone that the carbon tax will actually put money in your pocket. What absurdity. We're going to tax you to give you more. And some people are actually buying that. But there's the parliamentary budget officer telling you just the opposite. The carbon tax ultimately, in the end, will cost you, as an average Canadian, about almost $1,000 more per year. All that coming in 2024. There's also that digital services tax that is being imposed on social media companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon. And those additional higher advertising costs are very likely to be passed on in terms of higher prices for all kinds of consumer goods again. Because they're not going to just absorb that 3%. They're going to pass it along as part of the price chain. Oh, yeah. And if you enjoy drinking this New Year's Eve, well, enjoy it while you can, because in 2024, alcohol is going to cost more. Thank you, Justin Trudeau. There's a federal alcohol tax hike that is expected to cost taxpayers about $100 million more in 2024. In fact, did you know that the cost of beer right now, about half of the price of beer, is because of taxation? And it's even higher when you look at wine and other alcoholic beverages, where the total price, the total cost of many of those beverages is made up of 65% tax in Canada. According to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, 51 national governments that provided tax relief during the pandemic, or I should say they identified 51 national governments that provided tax relief during the pandemic to ease the burdens of inflation. Those governments include more than half of the G7 and G20 countries and 2/3 of the countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. But here in Canada, no, we're getting the opposite. You are getting some tax relief from some provincial governments in places like Saskatchewan, where they are responding, and I think in Alberta as well, where they are responding to the federal tax hikes with tax breaks to help their people out there. But that's not a total solution. And in fact, that puts increased pressures on provincial budgets, and those funds are then not present for other services in those provinces. So it's the provincial government providing the relief, not the federal government. And provinces don't have the ability to print their own currency. They're at the mercy of the federal government as much as the citizens are in many respects when it comes to macroeconomic policies. So 2024 is going to be a tough one, or at least tougher than 2023 economically, I think. And in fact, it is in Alberta that the government promised to cut personal income taxes and also passed legislation requiring a vote before the government can increase income or business taxes. Manitoba's income tax cuts also could save taxpayers there about $2,000 in the coming year. And over in Quebec, well, they lowered their income tax rate on the first two income tax brackets. New Brunswick implemented income tax relief last year. And even in Prince Edward Island, the income tax rate has been cut to save the middle class, the average middle class taxpayer, about $200. But Trudeau, no, taking the opposite approach. He would prefer to increase taxes, then turn around, take that money, give some of it back in order to buy your vote, thinking that he's going to fool us all into thinking that he is philanthropic, generous, kind, and caring, because he's trying to buy us with our own money.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Exile. The Knights of Malta. Maverick News. Join us. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back, and yeah, I think it's time to go to the phones. So let's do that, shall we? Let me get the number up on the screen here for you. We'll get things rocking and rolling here in a minute. Also, a reminder that if you'd like to support the channel, if you like what we do, you can donate at maverickdonations.com. That'll take you to the Give, Send, Go donation page. Or you can also donate at freedomreporters.com. That's where most people prefer to do it, freedomreporters.com. And please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. We're still in Facebook jail. I wished people a Merry Christmas on Messenger, and I'm still not allowed to use Messenger as a result. Prohibited. I can see messages coming in, but I'm not allowed to respond. So people, I guess, just continue to think I'm being rude. I'm not. I have no way to respond on Messenger. In some cases, I've responded by email to people whose email addresses that I have. If they've messaged me, then I respond with an email back. So I've done that, but I can't respond on Messenger. Maybe tomorrow. I can't post on Facebook either. On a temporary ban. Still in Facebook jail. I'll wear it like a badge of honor. Wear it as a badge of honor. So, the whole thing with Trump, just to go back to this before we go to the phones, it's clear that the politics is pretty dirty. And we're seeing some evidence and maybe even an inadvertent admission of guilt tonight from Sheena Bellows from Maine. Hang on a second here. Let me see if I can find you that clip. So yeah, here's Sheena Bellows. Really just talking about how, she has decided that Trump can't be on the ballot, right? In Maine. Democrat. It seems that this push is coming from some people who are closely aligned with the American Civil Liberties Union and other political groups, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Democrat aligned, I would say. Neoliberal wokesters. And this is pretty much an admission in this broadcast that was run on C-SPAN with a bunch of these lefties pretty much admitting that it's these organizations or people from them, some of the leaders from some of these organizations, or people who have previously been involved with or at least have ties to them, that are trying to choreograph. It seems like they're trying to choreograph this anti-Trump lawfare being designed to keep them off ballots in various states. Let's run this clip, and you can assess for yourself. But some people are out there tonight saying that this is evidence of choreographed lawfare coming directly from these organizations and the people involved who they are characterizing as political activists, anti-Trumpers.
And Secretary Bellows, would love to hear about your thoughts on like our biggest threats facing our democracy at this point in time.
Well, what Secretary Griswold just said and named is something that was unimaginable 2 years ago or 10 years ago, and that is election sabotage. It is a crystal clear example of what's happening all across the country. So we need to organize to make sure we have better leaders in positions of power to fight back against that. Secretary Benson talked about voter suppression, and that's something that when we started our careers at the ACLU and Southern Poverty Law Center, fighting back about systematic, structural voter oppression, targeting specifically Black and brown voters. It's rooted in white supremacy. That is something we have to continue to do work on. And Secretary Merrill talked about the For the People Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. We must have federal standards all across the country. And then finally, just to echo my colleagues, this is rooted in a deliberate and organized campaign to discourage people from participating in our democracy. It is an attack on our very democracy itself, because when everyone participates, everything that we care about, social justice, climate justice, economic justice, we win. Those on the other side are trying to discourage people from participating. That's what this really is about. We have to fight back to protect our democracy, to protect everything.
That's such a good point.
On the surface, that sounds fantastic. But when you dig down deeper and really listen to what was really said, shouldn't the effort really be focused on election integrity, making sure one vote, one person, one vote, making sure that you're getting only people who are allowed to vote in voting, voter ID, paper ballots, if for no other reason than to address growing concerns about election integrity and the integrity of voting machines. If people are really that concerned about it, and it's undermining that the use of such machines is one of the main causes of voter skepticism and a loss of confidence in the system, then why not just return to the paper ballots? Just put people's minds at ease. When you really listen to what was said, they're all trying to work together, coordinate. So I understand why some people are viewing those comments in the way that they do as being an admission of choreographed lawfare aimed at President Trump. Let's run this brief promo, and when we come back, we will go to the phones.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! To bugs!
Okay, we're getting her cranked up. Here we go.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start taking some phone calls. Let's go to our first caller of the night. Go ahead, you're on the air. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Can
you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You're kind of broken up, but you're getting better now. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, I'm getting older and crusty in my old age, so I kind of creak and crackle, and sometimes I break up a little bit.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Well, I'm going to wish you a Merry Christmas, if Facebook likes it or not. Heck with them.
Thank you.
And I kind of wondered where you disappeared to, because you're usually pretty good at getting back to me. And I'm thinking, okay, something's happened. So I don't think you're being rude. I kind of figured something happened. And then I didn't see you on Facebook, and I thought, uh-oh. You disappeared completely.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, I got to love Facebook.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Anyways, like that. So did you have a good Christmas?
Yeah. I spent, lots of time with the family and did some catching up. So, yeah, I'm grateful for that. How about you, Chris?
It was very nice. I spent it with my family, and then my daughter-in-law's family also joined in. And because, we got a baby coming in about 3 weeks here. So it was really nice. We all got together, and yeah, it was really festive. It was really good.
Awesome.
I even got a bottle of wine from my son for New Year's Eve. How do you like that? I don't even get that from him.
That's great.
So that was nice.
Oh,
yeah.
You told me that you ordered How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom as a gift.
I did. And I've actually got, they both actually came in the mail. And one's going to be shipped off to my older son here. And I actually read it last night. It's quite funny. You know what? It's a nice little souvenir book. I really think it's something down years to come, when everything settles down, we'll be able to look back at that and go, this really happened, and this was really cool. It's like kudos to that guy for writing it. And I noticed there's a lot more of there's a lot more books on Amazon that he wrote as well.
Yes, they've done a few now, and yeah, they do a good job over there. I love what he's doing.
Yeah.
Eric Smith and his team. So it's fantastic stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? Amazon actually delivered it. I got it. They said not till January the 3rd, and it came yesterday. So I guess I will continue ordering from Amazon. It looks like I can only trust them. I'm not ordering from nobody else. Never, ever, ever again.
Yeah.
But Amazon was good.
I prefer to not have to order anything from a big company like that myself. But, these days, sometimes it's difficult because your choices become more and more limited as the economy becomes more concentrated in terms of ownership, right?
Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm going to rant tonight a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. So Alberta, the Premier Daniel Smith is putting our fuel tax back on January the 1st. So people are really, really upset about that, because our gas is just starting to come way down. And today I noticed everybody was filling up. So obviously I think it's going to go up either 9 or 13 cents more a liter. I don't know why. And she's not doing anything about the carbon tax. Now, I did read that the Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe I believe his name is.
Yes.
He is taking the carbon tax off of everybody's gas bill starting January the 1st. Nobody in Saskatchewan will pay carbon tax on their bills. He's actually defying Trudeau. And good for him, but there's no talk or anything about Danielle Smith doing anything like that. She's so focused on, and I get it, she's focused on the oil and gas, and, she's very concerned of what's coming, I mean, this phasing out of, vehicles and all this kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, that's concerning. No doubt about it. I can't see EVs are going to take off anyways, at least not out here. I don't know where you live, but they're not very popular out here. And what else? Oh, and healthcare. So do you remember I had messaged you about that little girl?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just make it real quick. She's back home now. She seems to be doing okay. So what I'll tell your viewers is this little girl, she's 8 years old. She went to her doctors a few weeks ago for ADHD. The doctor prescribed serotonin for her, which it ended up, it was an adult strength. And this little girl got overdosed on it, took well, both our hospital our hospital emergency was closed all weekend. And in Castor, it was closed also all weekend. So the ambulance took her from our town to Coronation, which is about 95 kilometers away. They get her there, they get her triaged, and they call Stars ambulance. Stars comes and gets her. Now, Mom can't go in with Stars, so Mom's driving in her car. They ended up taking her to Edmonton first, but Edmonton couldn't take her. They had no room. So they said, okay, we'll take her to Calgary, which she should have gone to Calgary Stollery Children's Hospital to start with. They get her there, and there's no room. She ended up going back to Red Deer, which is 40 minutes away from here. So now she's had all this time flying around. Her mom's driving all over, not knowing where she's going. The doctor prescribed too much. The pharmacist filled it, not thinking. I think there's a lot of wrongs in that picture. I don't know what's going to happen, but the little girl for now is at home. She's resting. She's still not the greatest, but she's doing better. So I guess that's a good start for the new year.
Well, I'm glad to hear that she's on the mend. That was very scary.
Yes, because she couldn't, no matter what they were giving her wasn't working. She couldn't eat nothing. She couldn't drink nothing. Like, she was really, really sick. Actually, she ended up getting a kidney infection from it as well. So I don't know what the long-term effects will be, but, serotonin isn't something they can just flush out of your system. Like, if it's an overdose, right? It's in your system. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So she's doing well. So as far as that lady that did that video, she's right. Healthcare sucks. I have no other words to say. That's my rant. So anyways, other than that, life goes on, and we wait until the new year and all these new carbon taxes. And I don't know, did you get that message I told you about the carbon tax out here, how we're being taxed on the carbon tax?
Yes, I did see that, but maybe you want to just tell people a little bit about that.
Okay, so out here in Alberta, we only pay 5% GST. So on your bill, you get a carbon tax just on your gas part. So if you have an electric bill or a gas bill combined, or if you just get your gas bill, what it is my daughter-in-law over Christmas, we were looking at her bills. If you add up your total bill, and then you add the 5% GST, you'll get the total of the GST that's on your bill, the right amount. But then if you re-add it all up again and you take out the carbon tax, it changes completely. So you're paying 5% GST on a carbon tax, which is a tax. Mm-hmm. So you're paying twice.
Tax on a tax.
Yep. And that is from the federal government that applies that. And a lot of people, but you don't even know that. So if anybody that's got a carbon bill, go look at it. Do some math. Yeah. I mean, there's not much we can do about it, but it just goes to show you how they keep gouging us every little penny. It's getting ridiculous. Like, I don't know where the end's going to be, but I'm really hoping, I'm praying that he will call an early election although he claims he's not going anywhere. But I guess he's lower in the polls. From what I hear, the new polls came out yesterday. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't seen those. Let me see
So,
if I can
like,
find
I guess,
what it says. I'm seeing stuff from a month ago. Do you know who released that poll? Yes,
I
it was
don't know
yesterday?
which one it was. I just heard within the last few days another poll came out, so it'll be very, very recent.
I see. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that recent. So,
Okay, well, I'll try to find it, and then I'll text you the information and to try to find it. I'll have to find out. I can't remember what, because there's different polls, right? So
yes, yeah,
can't remember which one it was that I heard.
different.
But anyway,
Yeah, different polls
and
times.
yeah, so I guess that's all I have to say tonight.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, great talking to you as always,
All
Chris. I
right,
really
I'll let you
appreciate it.
go.
Okay, thank you. And
Okay, have a good night.
all right,
See you later. Bye-bye.
Merry belated Christmas and a Happy New Year. And let's get Mike on the line. How are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm just fine. Welcome.
Good. Yeah, glad to be with you. Yeah, I just wanted to add some ideas when you were talking about, in light of the current Middle East crisis, how you were talking about how these days people a lot are saying that the U.S. did it to itself, right?
No, yeah.
I wanted to add. I wanted to mention. I think his name is Prime Minister Gough Whitlam in Australia. His presidency, the U.S. actually conspired to remove him from his political seat in Australia, because what he wanted to do was he wanted to shut down a U.S. military base called Pine Gap in Australia. It's a very secretive base. And he wanted to pull the Australian army out of the Vietnam War, right? And he wanted to pull Australia out of the British Commonwealth. So the CIA, the British government, and Australian intelligence conspired to get him out of office. So I would recommend looking into that. The man's name is Gough Whitlam, so it's spelled Gough, and then Whitlam, Whitlam. And also, I would recommend looking into the Salvador option. The Salvador option was something where the U.S. would support dictators in Latin America, and those dictators would send paramilitary forces to be trained at a place called the School of the Americas, which was a military training base in the United States. And then they would send these people back to Latin America, and the U.S. would work with these governments to fight insurgencies with these paramilitary groups. They were they're known historically as death squads, right? So it's something to think about. It's something to think about when, in light of this current Mideast crisis. I guess, have you heard of the Salvador option?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that the United States is perfect, or that they haven't engaged in activities around the world that they maybe shouldn't have been engaged in. I see a lot of missteps, corruption. The thing about the United States is it's complicated because you have various political forces within a democracy with different objectives. Even you get one president in, Trump's foreign policy completely different than what Biden's foreign policy is. Biden's is more in alignment with what Obama's was. So you get a change in administration, you get a completely different approach to things. You have Bush in power, you've got something else again. You've got the neocons in there. So from administration to administration over time, the United States will align itself and has aligned itself with um, political organizations, paramilitary, even terrorist groups that you have seen at times are anti-American, are opponents or enemies of America, and yet the United States ends up funding them at some point, or even sometimes you might argue creating these opponents.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's a lot of it doesn't make sense. That being said, at the same time, I think there's nuance in a lot of this. There is a need for a greater understanding of why at any given time the United States government takes actions that it takes. And the United States isn't the only government that engages in activities that seem to be contradictory. You can look at Russia or China even and say, well, why are they aligned with them now? They used to be opposed to them. Why did the United States leave all those weapons in Afghanistan? And, I can come up with my own assessment of that. Some of these things don't make sense, but you need to put it into context, in terms of what happened at the time. Why did the government respond the way they did at that time, and not fall into the trap of sort of judging everything from a current perspective without understanding what was going on at that moment. If you understand.
True, that sounds wise.
Right?
That sounds wise. But I was saying, when you look at George Bush, Barack Obama, Trump, and Biden now, there seems to be a continuity of policy. Because Bush, he said the axis of evil was Iraq, North Korea, and Iran. All throughout the Bush and Biden administration, they kept trying to link Iran to supplying weapons to Iraqi insurgents. Then Trump, he kills an Iranian general and tries to start war with Iran twice. And you see Obama and Biden starting conflict with Russia and China. And then Biden is also now trying to cause problems with Iran also. And Trump when you listen to Trump, he seems to, I don't know, Trump is a bit confusing. It seems like he doesn't want issues with Russia, but China, on the other hand, I'm not sure where he stands on that.
China he sees as the greatest threat. Russia, and I think I think he is correct about that, because they're trying to assert themselves as the dominant economic force in the world now.
Yeah. See, now that's scary what you just said about Trump, because it would seem then that Trump is in alignment with Biden and Obama, because Biden and Obama created the pivot to Asia, which is a strategy to concentrate U.S. military force into the Asia Pacific region, because it's going to be the center of economic activity, and how Obama came up with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is also another part of that pivot to Asia strategy.
I can understand that point of view. I think the truth, though, lies in, and I wouldn't even say truth, is to analyze it with more accuracy, with better focus. It's not so much about, it's not like Trump has to have a completely opposite foreign policy to previous administrations. It's more about the approach and the way that they're going to deal with these countries. China is an adversary, or at least a competitor, right? And I think Trump would probably take an approach that would be more aligned with trying to avoid military confrontation.
That I would prefer.
But, with what we've seen with Pelosi flying over to Taiwan, when you see other U.S. officials flying straight into Taiwan when China is saying, don't do that, it's like they're poking China right in the eye.
Yeah, that was gross. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
So I think that in that way, Biden is really not wise. I don't think the administration there is wise. They are arrogant. I think Trump honestly has a more diplomatic approach to things, even though he's always portrayed in the media domestically as being the saber rattler, but he didn't get us into new wars. I think that his policies were more effective overall in keeping us out of these conflicts. And I think that the record speaks for itself in that regard. He went to North Korea and met with Kim Jong-un, right? I think that's a good thing. It's good to talk to other
Very
countries
much
that have
so.
weapons, right?
Trump
Biden.
is a very. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I was gonna say Trump is. I don't know. He's very confusing. Like he does one good thing 1 minute, and then he kind of messes it up the next with something else, but then he corrects it later. It's I don't know. It's very. His actions are very funny to me.
I can understand
But yes,
that.
ultimately,
I can understand that, and I think that he is confusing because it's a very confusing situation. These alliances between countries, they're always shifting.
yes,
And
that's right.
and you have to understand too, and I don't mean when I say you, I mean people in general need to take a broader view of this stuff, because it isn't just what the United States does. It's what other countries like Russia and China and India and Brazil, what these other countries are all doing as well. And now they're jockeying for position and trying to form alliances and partnerships with other countries, including these Arab countries, right? So all of these things are playing out at the same time. And I think that the Biden administration in particular has done, with Blinken, has done a terrible job of managing relations with Russia. There was a real opportunity there to really forge a stronger relationship and avoid everything that has happened here, and cement peace. But instead, we've got just the opposite, because I think that you're dealing with corruption and money laundering and self-interest in Ukraine. Also some influence from China. And also when it comes to politics, quite often when you're dealing with corruption, it's like what people say to the public and what they even appear to be doing in public is actually just cover for what they're really doing, on the other side of things. They're actually acting toward the opposite objective when you think they're doing this. It makes politics very difficult to follow and understand.
That's true. That's true. That's true. It is a very complex world we're dealing with. I guess maybe the other thing I would say is, with the Palestine activists, I don't think they necessarily want the destruction of the West. They would prefer, what they really want is for the West to do better, I think. You know what I mean? Like, they just acknowledge that, how should I say this? There are commonalities, between the side opposing Palestine and Western nations. There are historic commonalities. And the West is staunchly in support of the side that is not Palestine. And that support can be problematic. I don't think they want the destruction of the West. They just want the West to live up to what it says it is, I feel.
Again, I think for a proper analysis, a broader aerial view is needed. And if you really look to see which countries are lining up and on each side, it becomes a little bit clearer of what is really going on. It isn't really just a conflict between Israel and Hamas or Israel and Palestine. These other countries are directly involved. You have Iran supplying weapons. Well, who is Iran aligned with? Iran is aligned these days with China. Iran is aligned with Russia. Russia has interests in the Middle East as much as the United States does. Maybe not to quite the same degree, because they're drilling for more oil these days and selling more oil and natural gas than the United States does. They're not as reliant, but they certainly have interests there because the United States, because of the war in Ukraine, has become more adversarial. So the Russia is responding, right, in kind, because it's not even so much ideological as it is simply about self-preservation, existential threats. It's about just taking acts to preserve and enhance geopolitical power. As any nation state, ultimately, I think, in terms of political realism, it's just any nation state is predicated on power, projection of power, real power, and this is a power struggle. Not so from Russia's perspective, I think it's less ideological, but it's about power. That being said, the other thing, if you really look at it from an aerial view, the common thread or the cohesion of these countries lining up together, it's a shared interest in opposing American, what they would say American imperialism and capitalism, which they are conflating with Zionism.
Because I will say this, Rick, like when you look at the BRICS nations, right, like BRICS, right?
Yep.
The main nations that founded BRICS, there's one thread that links all those nations, and that's Western colonialism and imperialism, right?
Right.
Like Brazil was a Portuguese colony. Russia, what's his name? Winston Churchill, he tried to kill the Bolshevik Revolution in his crib, right? Because Britain, France, the United States, and Japan invaded Russia during the Bolshevik Revolution. Which else? Yeah. So we did Brazil, Russia, India. India was obviously a British colony for like, I think 300 years. China was pretty much colonized and split in pieces by Britain, the United States, Germany, France, to the point that American military vessels were patrolling the Yangtze River. And then and then South Africa was colonized at first by people from the Netherlands and then taken over by the British, right? So I think that history, like these nations they have not forgotten that history. And I think we need to take that into a consideration also, especially with what's going on in the Middle East and whatnot. Like, I would say that Western capitalism, the way I look at it is an ecosystem, right? That the U.S. enforces. And when you challenge that ecosystem, then they will use violence or they will use sanctions or whatever tool they can use to put your country back in place. That's why I think they're lining up against Western capitalism, right? Because they probably don't have a problem per se with capitalism, because India and Russia are capitalist nations. It's just how the West imposes it on the rest of the world that they have a problem with.
Yes, because they use the dollar as a weapon. Because it's the default currency. And it's, we're going to sanction you, and we're going to sanction you, and we're going to freeze your bank accounts, right? That's what they do.
Yeah.
So I totally get why they want to get off the U.S. dollar, because they want to be sovereign. They want to have self-determination, as any nation state does. They don't want to buy into this globalist agenda. They want autonomy from all of that. And to have that, you need to have control of your economy. You can't have that if you're dependent on a US dollar as the world reserve currency. So absolutely, I totally get it. That being said, you know, it's a little simplistic, I think, sometimes when people just view all of this, though, through the lens of American imperialism or colonialism from the, the British side, Western countries. Again, you need to, I think, we need to look at this globally, also through the other opposite lens of where Russia and China are coming from on this, because even right now, Russia is in South Africa. They have been using Wagner mercenaries to go in there, and they're exploiting the diamond mines in South Africa, even as we speak. So they engage in a lot of activities that don't get any scrutiny from us
Quite
here in the
possibly.
West, right? It's and it's they're doing that on a budget. Like they don't even have to expend resources through their own military. They're using these hired guns to essentially go in there and just kind of oversee operations. And it's going on right now. And I don't necessarily blame these countries for doing what they're doing. I'm just saying that all countries kind of engage in these activities that enhance their power, are in their own self-interest economically. So they're not all squeaky clean, and the United States responds in a lot of this stuff, and the Western countries are end up being damned if we do, damned if we don't, because we have such an eclectic political and economic history. You can point to anything and say, "Oh, see, they're guilty of that and guilty of that," and focus only on the negative. And I don't think that's always fair.
Yeah. Sorry, not to cut you off, but I would say, like, what I learned, especially from like your friend of the show, Caleb Maupin, and a little bit from my own research, is that Africa actually has a very friendly relationship with Russia, because the kind of policy that the Chinese are doing now, where like they'll swap infrastructure for natural resources, the Russians under the Soviet Union started that, right?
Yeah.
And the Russians also kind of help with decolonization in Africa in various ways. So countries like South Africa, they look on Russia favorably as a friend, right?
Yes. Yep.
So that might explain some of why. And I mean, Africa too, they have a lot of problems and issues with terrorism. The part in South Africa, I would have to look into that more. I didn't know that Wagner was there in South Africa, but
and they do that for optics too, because then they can't be accused of having Russian military there. So they use these private military, paramilitary organizations to go in and just to do some of the things that they need done, right? Even the other stuff is the other thing to consider is that media is much more controlled in these other countries, and as a result, there's a lot of information that doesn't come out. And if you look at what is going on in South Africa in the aftermath of apartheid, there's kind of a lot of, well, you're seeing farmers, and I'm careful, have to be careful what I say here because we're on YouTube, but you see,
I understand,
white farmers, really bad things have happened there. Really, really bad things. You see the ANC, even under Mandela, which is essentially communistic, and they've engaged in very authoritarian things and even violence. Where we've seen incidents with people being burned alive in covered with tires and then having them set ablaze, things like that. And you don't hear about that in the media over here. So it's not always as simple as people make it out to be. And I think that we here in the West, we take it on the chin a lot of the time. And we're much more vulnerable to propaganda, information warfare, because we do have we're having an increasing amount of censorship, but we still have some degree of freedom of speech, freedom of media. And that's exploited, I think, by political activists here domestically, foreign governments. And as a result, it ends up undermining a lot of confidence that we have in our own institutions and our government. But I'll take it. I'll take the freedom that comes with that chaos, because I prefer the freedom with the chaos than less freedom and more stability, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, freedom is valuable for sure, for sure. I suppose I'll let you go now, so you can go to the next caller.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling in tonight. Greatly appreciate it. It was a great call and very thoughtful discussion.
You,
Thank you. Really good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Have a good night.
All right. Look forward to the next one.
Bye then. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye then.
And I think we lost that caller. I think he hung up. Yeah, I don't think you're there. Are you there or did you hang up? He's Gonzo.
Hello?
Oh, no, hang on a sec here.
Oh?
Oh, you're there. Okay, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, Rick,
Hello?
it's Paul here.
Hey, how are you tonight?
Good, good. How was your Christmas?
It was pretty good. Yeah, we had turkey dinner. And
Everyone missed you. Everyone missed you for a few days.
oh, well, I miss being on here, honestly. I enjoy being here every night. I do. It's a privilege.
Well, I sent you something in the mail by snail mail. I don't know if you got it yet.
No.
But I want to also wish everyone a happy new year. All the best.
Well, thank you. I'll keep an eye open for whatever it is that you sent me. A Christmas surprise, a belated Christmas surprise, or New Year's surprise. Looking forward to that. Thank you.
All righty.
All right. And a happy new year.
All right. Get on to your next caller.
Okay.
Happy New Year, Rick.
All right. Take care. See you.
Bye.
Okay. Somebody else wants to talk about Turkey. Who's on the line?
Hi, my name
Hello.
is Ernest. Hello?
Hello.
My name is Ernest. I'm from Ottawa, and I voted Liberal. And I'm going to keep voting Liberal, Rick.
Oh, okay. You're going to be.
You know why I want to vote Liberal?
Why is that? Why would you want to do that?
Because I get everything for free, Rick. Everything.
Oh, my.
I work for the government.
Well, we'll end up paying the price for you then.
I even get free tampons now, Rick.
And
Mr. Trudeau's so kind. He when he gave that money to We Charity.
Yeah.
He's a kind man. He's a kind man, Rick.
Well,
thought he is.
We'll see. We'll see how much longer he sticks around.
Yeah, well, all the other liberals out there, like DK, she's on there. She's liberal. I know she's liberal. Anasty, she's liberal.
Oh, absolutely. I can tell.
PDS, he's liberal. He's kind of like what we call half Jewish, half Nazi. I like that guy because I'm liberal.
That is a liberal.
Oh man,
that is a liberal, man.
That is a liberal.
Liberal is just a Nazi in disguise these days, I think.
Yeah, liberals are stuck in between the worlds, buddy. Big time.
Yeah.
Very confused people. When I watch the news every day, it's like, wow, man. I try and stay away from the mainstream media. Like all I have is Global TV on an app.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest headlines today on Global TV was there's going to be a rise in head lice in Canada.
Oh, good.
I wonder why. Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, well, it does. You don't have to look too far to come up with the answer to that. Just
100%.
Look at what's coming in through the airport, right?
Itchy and scratchy time, folks.
Yeah.
You got kids in grade school. Look out! You better get a pet monkey. Put them on their backs.
Leo, you've touched on something that is just so obvious. If there's a reason to not vote Liberal, just look at what's going on in the men's washrooms with tampons. If you have a government that is putting tampons in men's washrooms, it makes no sense. It should tell you right there that we are not dealing with serious, stable people. We're dealing with people who have real serious issues, and they should not be running a country.
And it's on the backs of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
It's not like Justin shelling out of his own back pocket for tampons in the bathroom.
Yeah.
We're paying for this shit, folks.
Yeah.
Okay. It's sickening what's going on. And, he thinks it's great. He's oblivious. Okay. To the polls. He's oblivious to everything, right? So, I said the only solution out of this is an election. Okay. And the only way you're going to get an election is to put as much pressure as you can on your local NDP.
Yeah.
Okay. There's only, how many NDP are there? 100 of them?
Yeah.
So you pull a convoy style, okay, and you don't leave. And it's not an occupation; it's a protest out front. You're calling for something legitimate called an election, and they're the only ones who hold the keys to that, folks. The Liberals aren't going to call it. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
They're going to try and stay in power as long as they can.
Yeah. You only have 25 NDP members of parliament federally. And they're the ones propping up the government. They need those 25 NDP members.
There's only 25 seats?
Yeah, they only have 25 out of 330.
So, over a whole, okay, and you see how people protested up in Ottawa, in Toronto, and everything else. Now, for rural Canadians out there that can't make it to Toronto or Ottawa, okay, do the same thing. You could do it if there's only 25 seats, NDP, and you set up protests in the 25 areas.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, they'll be calling for an election. They'll be scared straight.
Yeah, I hope so.
And that's what you have to do. You're not going to get it any other way. People are saying, "Oh, well, Justin's going to call for an election." He ain't calling for no election. Don't kid yourself.
Not if he doesn't have to.
He's calling for a coalition.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And even though Jagmeet Singh came out this past week and said he was ruling out a coalition government if, after the next election, no matter what, I don't believe him, not for a second. He'll form a coalition in a heartbeat again.
I'm setting up something down here in Windsor, Ontario for Brian Massey's office, which is only 6 blocks from my house. Okay, and it'll be a protest. And Brian Massey is one of the longest politicians in Parliament to date.
Yep.
What has he got, 25 years in office?
He's been around a long time, yeah.
Right, and he hasn't accomplished nothing. He got his one-on-one sports betting bullshit or whatever, right? I still haven't utilized it. I haven't made a wager. But that's all he fought for. Okay, and then he did it on the backs of the union workers. The union workers can't stand what's going on now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking up when was he first elected? Well, anyway, he's been around. And he was down there when I was working in Windsor with CTV.
Yeah, he's held different positions as critic to the border and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So he's been laying around on the backs of taxpayers doing nothing. Okay, nothing. Welfare. The guy gets a pension now, full pension. He'll get honors. He's one of the longest. He is the longest NDP in that cabinet federally.
Yeah, he was first elected in 2002 federally. He'd been on municipal council before that. Yeah, he's in Windsor West. That's the old Liberal stronghold of Herb Gray, who was a powerful Liberal for a long time. And then Rick Limoges, I think, took over that seat for a short time after Herb Gray, but then unseated by Massey, as I recall. Is that correct? Have I got that about right?
That sounds right. Yeah, Herb Gray, believe it or not. Okay, I'm gonna speak nice of somebody that's in the Liberal Party of Canada, that was in the Liberal Party of Canada. He's passed and gone. Was Herb Gray.
Mm-hmm.
Liberals weren't bad once upon a time, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Howard McCurdy was a Liberal.
Yep.
Okay. Herb Gray is another Liberal. There were good Liberals out there that would be they're turning in their graves today, going, "What the fuck has happened here?" Their party's going to be disseminated in the next election if they even get party status. That's scary. If you were a longtime Liberal paying dues member or whatever, okay, that's scary. Somebody's going to fall. It's either going to be the NDP with no status or the Liberals. I hope it's both.
Wasn't McCurdy a New Democrat? I think he was NDP.
No, I thought Howard McCurdy was a Liberal. I thought he was. He could have been NDP, but they're both the same, right?
Yeah.
And that's what people don't get.
Yeah.
Okay, if you vote if you vote NDP because they're speaking of the universal dental plan and everything else, and it sounds really nice, okay, they're the same as the Liberals. A vote for the NDP is a vote for the Liberals. A vote for the Liberals is a vote for the NDP.
Yes.
Now, if you apply pressure on those 25 members in protest where they can't even operate their business Believe me, they're going to call on Jagmeet Singh, and if Singh don't do anything about it, he's going to get his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
Right. So, when it comes down to party status, people get scared. Will you be there in the next election? These people are fighting for what? Free money, our money. They work for us. They're supposed to be anyways.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right. So when they stop working for us the way that we see it, it's sickening. Really, it is. And as for the war going on in Russia or in Ukraine, they just can't take part of it and call it off. Russia has to take it all, or they're going to have their own little Palestine. Okay, you just can't leave Kiev and take Odessa and everything else surrounding it. You're going to have that area now that's always going to be rebellious to Russia, and it's never going to end. So Russia has to act. They got to get their shit together. Just, I think I know what Russia's trying to do, and that's trying to drain as much money from the West as possible because they're supporting that conflict.
Yeah, which is actually
every day that it goes.
Which is actually the opposite. The West the United States, I think, was trying to use this to drain the resources from Russia, but I think it's turning into the opposite.
Well, how many countries have sanctions against Russia, and how many countries don't? The majority of the countries don't have any sanctions against Russia.
Yep.
161 countries that are for Russia.
Yep.
So, it didn't work out the way that America planned, but look who's running the show in America.
Yeah.
Right. It's, you get what you get. And, for them to discriminate and try and disqualify somebody running, especially in the presidential election.
And see, the United States wanted European countries to stop buying energy from Russia, especially with the Ukraine conflict raging, and the European countries wouldn't do it. They needed the energy. So what ended up happening? Nord Stream pipeline gets blown up.
Yeah, and we know who did that.
Yeah.
We got to. I'm not going to say it because you're on YouTube, but I think we all know who did that.
Yes.
And it's funny because sovereign nations that are in Canada, and we have sovereign nations within Canada called the natives. Okay, and every reserve sovereign. Now they all have a council and they make their own rules, this and that. Well, they sell gas, and they were selling Russian gas forever, Rick. Did you know that?
I wasn't aware that they were importing specifically Russian gas. I thought it was just coming in through the world market. So some of it could have been coming from Russia for sure.
No, there was Russian gas on the reserves for the longest time. I never bought it because it was Russian. We used to call it dirty fuel, right? There'd be particles in it and shit, right? It do more damage to your vehicle. But once the sanctions came, there was no more Russian gas on the reserves. It was all North American gas, right? So their gas is good, their diesel is great, and I buy it from there now, right? But yeah, Russia is taking control, and it's backfiring in the West's face, man, and it's pretty sad. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
You can't tell me there's that many stupid people in Washington and in Parliament that didn't know the outcome. It would be like Quebec trying to go against the United States of America.
Yeah.
You know the outcome. But yet, the Russians would probably be happy to finance that one.
Yeah, well, we've been saying it here for a long time, since the the beginning of the special military operation into Ukraine. I think the writing was on the wall even back then. So this is just
right.
I didn't expect it to take this long, but it's taking time.
I didn't expect. I thought it would have been done in 6 months, but that's why I've come to my senses that they're bleeding the West slowly but surely.
Yep.
Right. Let's take as long as we can. Russia's not hurting. Look at their economy. Okay, I watch videos from all over the world. Russia's economy is pumping, folks.
Yeah.
They're not in a food crisis where they're paying 300% more for a loaf of bread than they were 3 years ago.
That's right.
Right. Russia, their fuel is not $1.50 a liter.
Yeah, that's also
what it is today.
That's also why I say you have to look at these all of these conflicts that, whether you're looking at what's going on in China with Taiwan or the Middle East, you have to consider what these other countries are doing and the influence they're having as well. And I think that, Russia, China, especially those two countries, and Iran, they're manipulating the geopolitical reality even more so than the United States. They're in more control than people realize. And it's not enough to just kind of always look at what the United States is doing. We're not controlling everything anymore. So keep that
Not
in
at all.
mind. Keep that
Not
in
at
mind.
all.
Yeah.
And the United States hasn't won a war since Japan.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was the Allied forces, and Japan or the United States didn't come into the end of World War II in Europe. Okay. A lot of people don't know that. They think the United States was there from the beginning. They weren't.
No.
They came in the last 15 months of that war. Right. And they came out as the heroes and the superpower and everything else. If it wasn't for Hiroshima and Nagasaki, who knows what happened with Japan, right?
Yeah.
So they, they're a nuclear power, and they have that in a way that's a good thing for us. But who's gonna use it first is the question, right?
Well, the realities are changing, and it's been the nuclear bomb that has given Western countries, the West, not just the military dominance since World War II, but also the economic dominance, because we've had the military power that has extended to economic power all around the world as well. But that reality is changing. It's no longer a unipolar geopolitical reality. It's a multipolar geopolitical reality. And we are facing, as a result, serious economic repercussions from that.
Right. And as the America thins out, what you're doing with these conflicts with Ukraine and Israel and whoever else, right, around the world, their military thinned right out, guys.
Yeah.
So, they might have the nuclear weapons and this and that, but they don't have the military they had when I was growing up as a kid, not even close.
Yeah. And we've had administrations that have allowed the U.S. military to diminish under Obama and Clinton.
How did Iraq end in a stalemate?
Yeah.
How did Korea end in a stalemate? How did Afghanistan end? Disastrous stalemate, 20 years of war.
Yep. And for what?
Right. And it made the fall of Saigon look like a joke compared to what Afghanistan had.
Yeah.
So what happened in Vietnam? Vietnam became what? One country.
Yeah. Just
right. So I don't know, I don't know where I'm going with it, but America is not as powerful as everybody thinks militarily on the ground.
Yeah.
They are in the air. They are on the sea. But on the ground, man, I don't know. So maybe letting in all these immigrants and putting them in the military and sending them to the front lines of the meat grinders might be a good thing after all.
You can't rule through fear, power. You can't. So ultimately, if you think you're going to go into any country, use your military to change things. I shouldn't say that entirely. I mean, you can, but you need to then always have control. You become authoritarian as a result. You can't, what am I saying is you can't get freedom. You can't get democracy, true democracy or freedom through the use of coercion and force.
It wasn't long ago that Canadians were considered a peacekeeping nation.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of things on the humanitarian front throughout the world with our military. We weren't out fighting Yugoslavia. My poor brother was there peacekeeping. They didn't even have bullets. They just sat like referees on the sidelines.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So they weren't allowed to engage. Somalia, the same thing, right? They weren't allowed to engage, but they just sat there, right? So I don't. Yeah. At the end of the day, Rick, I just wish peace upon everybody for the whole wide world, and but I don't see it happening, not anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, we'll pray for better things in 2024.
Great on, mister.
Yeah, thank you, Leo.
Get to your next caller.
All right, you have a great night, my friend.
You too, buddy.
All right, let's bring John in. Hello, Sir John.
Oh, just watched a good hockey fight. You missed it. Leaf guy got hammered. Bennett, whatever his name is. Anyways.
So you're watching
I
the
got your
fights,
shirts,
hoping
Rick.
that a hockey game breaks out, eh?
I got your shirts, by the way.
Yeah,
They
and
fit
I'm
really
gonna.
good.
I'll send you at some point a like a golf type shirt, polo shirt. I just didn't have any left in your size, John. I was going to send you one of those too. So that will be coming your way
whatever.
when we get more made.
Yeah, I was at the town center today, and there's a store, clothing store, that's selling T-shirts, but they never had my size. They never had any 2X. They're all extra large, large. $4.99.
$4.99.
And they had, yeah, they had like Metallica. They had Johnny Cash. All kinds of nice shirts. I looked at them. I go, they had Philadelphia Eagles, and I go, shit, man. But none of them. They're all no, didn't have my size. $4.99. I go, wow, we're in big trouble if people are just giving stuff away like that. I don't know, but
yeah,
I see a lot of people talking about Russia's gas prices. I just Googled it. You know what they sell their gas there? It's equivalent to Canadian 60 cents a liter.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
But you know, we got a problem. You know, we have to wipe out all the Jews. I mean, not the Jews. No, the Jews they can stay. Americans can stay. Canadians, WF can stay. We got to wipe out all the Muslims. They got to go. Every one of them, Rick. We got to wipe them all out. Russia, we got to wipe Russia out. Everything. Whoever
That's not very nice, Johnny.
Hey, whoever doesn't want to follow the WEF, they got to go. I see Honesty talking about WEF. She's
Just
100%
for our
right.
friends at YouTube and the censors, John is not serious about any of that. That's
I'm
complete
not serious.
sarcasm,
No,
folks.
no,
Okay,
no.
just so you know, so we don't get banned for hate speech. He's not even
Oh,
joking.
no.
It's just sarcasm is what he's.
I'm being sarcastic because I don't like what's going on.
Yeah, I understand.
It's you know, this is a time for peace, not a time for this stupid war, and it's all politics. You know that. Everybody knows it's all about politics. You know, my friend, he's from Israel, and you know what he told me? Gaza and the West Bank, they built a wall around it, okay? But they said we have to build it 30 miles in. We need a buffer zone in case of any, you know, rockets or anything, right? So they built it 30 miles in, and they left a buffer zone around it. And you know what? He says today they're building houses. The Jews are building homes there, farmland. They're using the land up. They're not stupid. So I was watching a show. What they want to? They already got models and plans. They want to build beach houses in Gaza, multi-million-dollar beach houses in Gaza. You know, they've already got the layouts done and everything. They already got the plans. They're ready. They got on the land. They know where they're going to put them all. And parks. They want to build parks in there. Oh yeah, they got plans. They already got the plans to do it. Another friend of mine, he's always pushing the Bible on me. He's always pushing Jesus on me. He's telling me to download this Bible app. I downloaded like an idiot, and then I couldn't get rid of it. I said, what the heck? Anyways, I finally got rid of it. But the guy's a real Bible thumper, eh? This guy, he's a good guy. He's very Christian. He's always telling me to watch the Christian shows. He hates Muslims, and he says we got what they did on October 7th. He says we got to wipe them all out, all of them. They all got to go. I said, what side would Jesus take? And he's never talked to me again about that. You know, like, you're a goddamn, fake. I just can't. You know how many people are under that rubble there that they can't find? They're missing. They're not even in the list. There's like 21,000. There's probably another 20,000 in the rubble that they can't find. They need cranes to lift all this shit up. Can't get in there. These guys are working by hand. Unbelievable, Rick. Anyways,
What are you doing to your dog? Is that you in the back? Is that your dog, John?
I don't have a dog. I got a cat.
Is that you, Leo?
Must be Leo.
That's
dog.
me, Rick. The mouth of the South still on your station, listening.
What's going on, Leo? How's? Hey, I seen you there in the bar there. Was that bar in Windsor?
What, the gay bar?
Is it a bar? Was it a bar with the eagle emblem in the back?
No, that was my buddy's garage.
Oh, cool. That was cool.
Yeah, he's all set up, man. He's doing well, that guy.
That looked like fun there. Yeah, I seen that on. You were having a good time there. It looked like dancing away.
Did you see that video I posted? No, I didn't. But my daughter, I hardly get tricked, Rick, ever. My son, he's 18 years old. I'm watching football last week, Sunday or Saturday, and he comes in the living room with a 40-pounder of vodka. Well, they took the vodka. It was an empty bottle, and they put water on it. He sits down next to me and my wife, and we're having a party, right? And everybody's in the living room. I said, what are you guys doing in here? And my daughter's filming it. Yeah. My son says, watch this, Dad. And he grabs the bottle, and he starts chugging it. Right? And I'm like, you're going to fucking puke all over my furniture, you stupid fuck, right? And I didn't know my daughter was filming it. I told her, don't put that shit on Facebook, right? But it was pretty funny. Right? They got me good because he's only 18. I don't want that kid drinking at all, period.
Oh, no, don't get him
right?
going on that. But that stuff's hard.
But yeah, I'm a really nice guy. And the look on my face, the blood was just boiling, right? And they said, it's just water. And I was like, oh my God, you got me good.
That was a good one.
Did you have a good Christmas, Johnny?
Yeah, it was quiet. I didn't really go. Well, I went to a few places, but I didn't really get crazy. Everybody that I know, my family that went everywhere, that wanted me to go, they all got colds now, or the flus or colds. I don't know. They all got colds. Put it that way. They're all sick, and I didn't get sick. Thank goodness. Knock on wood there.
Yeah, me either. I didn't get sick at all.
It's flu season, and right now, if you start, like a friend of mine, I said to him, what are you doing for New Year's? He goes, I think I'm going to go to the casino. I said, wear rubber gloves, man. Because if you know how many people got colds in there, they're in there pulling those levers and touching buttons, and all it takes is you to touch, to grab, touch your eye or something, and boom, you're going to have a cold.
Yeah, I got garlic and honey that I've been fermenting. Okay, and whenever I don't feel like, if I feel off, I'll have some of that, a teaspoon of that. Hot peppers that I canned, I blended down into a paste. Like just now I had chicken wings I put in my wife's brand new Ninja air fryer. I wanted to test it out. It worked out great. But my son came upstairs and made some hot sauce. You are what you eat, right? I don't go and buy Buckley's. I don't even take aspirins.
Do you know? Yeah, you are what you eat is right. Like you look. I was listening to this one doctor. You look at Greece, for instance. They all smoke like chimneys, drink like fish, okay? and they live like 80, 90 years old. Well, how can that be? When you're a heavy smoker, you're a heavy drinker, and it's what they eat, the Mediterranean diet.
Well, it's funny you say that because this Italian guy, he's my buddy's father-in-law. He's 93 years old. He smokes a pack a day every day. Okay, drinks his Beano. Okay, and he grows his own tomatoes in his own garden. Okay, and I went out to his garden this year, and he had the biggest tomatoes I've ever seen. They look like almost the size of my head. One tomato. Right, so he gave me. Yeah, I swear to God, they're huge. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, organically grown, and I like tomatoes. I like a nice sliced tomato on my bacon sandwiches. These tomatoes were so big that one slice would have took up, like, if you put two pieces of bread together, it would have, right? So I had to cut them down. I was like, but this guy grows, and he gave me the heirloom seeds, and he got these seeds out of Portugal or wherever, right? Of these tomatoes. I went, these are pumpkins, man. These aren't tomatoes. It's delicious, but he's alive. He's kicking, and he eats a lot of these tomatoes, man. So you are what you eat.
You know, a lot of people talking about honey on here, eh? My cupboard, I've got about 12 jars of honey, and they've been sitting in there for a couple of years. I keep getting more. I know someone who has a farm, and they have honey. They make honey, and it's pure honey, pure honey.
Right.
Do you know what they tell me? Honey will never go bad. It'll last forever.
It'll go rock hard.
No, it'll last forever. Real honey will last forever. The stuff you buy in the store is all sugar. That's why it goes rock hard.
In fact, did you know that honey is one of the top 3 faked foods in the world? Made with sugar and glucose and fructose, faked, or is adulterated, diluted with corn syrup and sugary ingredients like that. It's one of the top 3 foods in the world to be.
What's the second? Syrup?
I don't know. I just know that because I was reading an article about a week ago about honey in this exact topic.
Yeah, because you could get the Aunt Jemima or whatever it's called now. They had to change the name, whatever it's called. You could get it for $3 a thing. I tell them I haven't eaten it in years.
That's all sugar.
Yeah, my wife, I make sure she buys the Canadian pure maple syrup that comes in the fancy big bottles. Looks like whiskey.
Yeah.
Right, and it's like $16, $17 a bottle. I don't care. Right.
I got this one jar. It's like a couple of jars here that it's like at least 5 years old. Where are they? Let's see if it's rock hard there, my friend. I got to take all the
Johnny. Take some garlic, whole garlic cloves. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so take the skin off them, obviously, and put them in that honey, okay, and let it ferment for a month. You got yourself
moves like crazy. Look, I can shake it. I got 6, 7 jars here. I buy the honey in the stores, and it goes hard, like you said.
Well, when I come to Toronto to see you, I want one of those jars.
I don't know, man. This looks like gold. but yeah, you get it from the. Anyways, the stuff from the store, I take a spoon. Like I like a spoonful in the morning, like a spoon. This stuff here, when I take a spoonful of this, it kind of makes you. You know what I mean? It kind of hits you right in the throat. It hits you because it's so pure. And it's a real kicker, man. And I haven't been eating it much lately, but I should get back into it again.
If you drink coffee with sugar, eliminate the sugar, put the honey in it. Same thing with tea, man.
Yeah,
it's good for you. You're going to live to 100 years old. I'm telling you, and do that with the garlic. Okay, you're going to make yourself. You're going to make yourself a cough syrup.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. The garlic.
Yeah, put a bunch of garlic in it. Okay, well, you're going to have to dump some out.
Don't dump it. Garlic you're talking about?
Don't mince it. Keep it whole. Okay.
Oh,
you know, the
whole
cloves.
garlic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and just put it in there, and after a month, it'll ferment. Okay, it won't go bad, and it'll get even runnier because it'll take out the liquid of the garlic, and
So
it'll
it'll
mix.
be like a sweet garlic, eh?
Right, and a teaspoon of that a day will keep the doctor away.
Really?
Well, I know people, man, that live by it. And they're
No,
living.
garlic.
They're living
Garlic
good.
is. The ladies don't like when you eat garlic. They don't like to be around you too often. Garlic breath.
Yeah, but you got that honey, right? So, but it's an antioxidant, right? It's an
I eat
antioxidant.
garlic all the time. I love garlic.
I looked it up, guys,
Detoxifies your body.
and the other two foods that are adulterated and faked most, I didn't know this. Apparently, milk is one, and the other one is olive oil. Milk. I don't know how
Wow.
they do that, but apparently it's one of the top three. Yeah. And honey is number 3.
Yeah, well, the milk does taste funny. When I was a kid, I used to go to the farm and I get raw milk. Right, my buddy owned a cattle farm, and they had the vats and everything, right? And they unpasteurized milk, and you know the difference when you taste that compared to what you buy in the stores.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so I don't know. We're talking worldwide, so I don't know how much of. What is that sound? Is there a kid?
I don't know.
in
That
the
ain't me.
back
It's my
room?
cat. I'm trying to get it off me.
John's under attack.
Johnny's cat.
Come on, get out of here.
We just mentioned a
Got
saucer
claws
of
on
milk,
my
and,
shirt. Oh
and
my
the cat
God.
came out of the woodwork. And now John's under
This
attack.
cat everywhere. It misses me when I leave. You know, like it starts howling and doesn't want me to leave.
Well, after the call, play with your pussy.
I don't want. This cat's old, man. You see, I take good care of it. You know, it's like it's probably 80 years old in human lives. It's
Cats
old.
live forever, buddy.
Well, I hope it does. I don't want it to go because I got it trained right now. You know.
I got a Shih Tzu that outlived my first Rottweiler, my American Bulldog, and me and my wife were talking the other night. I think the dog's can outlive me. Okay, it's been like I went through 3 different dogs. I swear to God, the Shih Tzu and it's running around.
You still have that, eh? You still have that dog?
Yeah, the Shih Tzu's outlived. I'm telling you, it's 20 years. Okay,
yeah.
I've had 3 different dogs, and they've all died, different breeds. But the Shih Tzu's still alive, running around, and the cat.
They're vicious, though, aren't they?
Well, she's mellow now, but yeah,
she's old now. But yeah, because they have. When I see one of those, I kind of stay away. I've had too many friction. They kind of don't like me sometimes. Well, you don't like anybody. They're very possessive.
Yeah. I think that dog's eating the honey and garlic.
So, any predictions for the New York mouth? What do you think?
It's going to be a lot bloodier than it was last year around the world. Guaranteed. Or your money back.
Yeah, it's sickening what's going on. It's not going to change. I agree with you. Not going to change. These people, they've got an agenda, and like Amnesty says, one world government. That's what it's in the books, and it's like our government is being run by Schwab. You know, Schwab tells them what to do. And we're just I hope. I don't like any politician, but Polyev, I think he'll open up the oil fields. He'll get rid of this electric cars, and they're talking about it people are starting to wake up now. You know, even the news. I'm surprised. I'm watching the news, and they go, before you buy an electric car, you got to think of the charging time. The weight of the car is a lot heavier than a regular car. Tow trucks can't pick it up. It's going to cost you like, you know, they don't last as long. They're telling you all the bad, nothing good. The only good thing is you save a lot of money on gas. That's the only good thing that they said.
Yeah, Trudeau saying he's going to make it affordable, the vehicle. Okay, it's not going to happen, Johnny. just like he made housing non-affordable and the cost of living non-affordable for
He's
Canadians.
a disaster. Everything,
He's a disaster.
Everything he says is a disaster.
I may not have a job on the 2nd or the 3rd of January when I go back to work. I might be on layoff because there is no work. And the reason why is because he's mandating, okay, just like the masks and the jibbity jabbities, okay, he's mandating auto sales to be 20% EV, which puts everybody in a jam because they're not selling these automobiles.
Well, the news, I'm telling you, they're pushing don't buy one because it's, there's a lot of, you buy one, it's a disaster. It's a disaster, I'm telling you.
Vancouver, there was an article in the province the other day, Rick, that I read about a fella in Vancouver who bought an EV. It was a Nissan, okay, and there was issues with the battery. Well, he had a little fender bender or whatever. ICBC, which is the insurance company of British Columbia, okay, and it's only one insurance company throughout BC. That's the only thing I like about BC, okay. He went through ICBC, and the vehicle was only $55,000. He paid. ICBC had to shell out $60,000 for a replacement vehicle.
Right. For just that's
and
just
the car was only a couple weeks old.
60,000.
Got to get a bank loan for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you hear about that story, Rick?
I sure did. Yep. I mentioned it briefly the other night, but yeah, that's exactly right. 60 grand to replace the battery in a 2022 model Nissan.
That's what they're saying. When the battery goes, you got to buy a new car.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to buy a new car.
They scrapped the car. They sent it to the junkyard.
Yeah.
Well, where do you put the batteries? In space? Some more space junk?
I don't know.
They're piling up.
I don't know what the hell they're thinking of these Einsteins in Ottawa.
The biggest story going on right now in Ontario, probably in the world. Okay. If you know anything about Ontario, Rick, you do. Right up the highway from you, you have the nuclear power plant on Lake Huron. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Saugeen Shores is a native reserve. Now, the government's trying to cut, $20 billion deal for them to put nuclear waste in the ground underneath Saugeen Shores. If you look at where Saugeen Shores is, Rick, you know exactly where it is, Rick. Okay, it's on your way to Tobermory. You can't miss it. Okay, underneath there is what? You got Lake Huron, the Georgian Bay. Okay, and they want to go miles underground to store nuclear waste. Plutonium, used plutonium.
Wow.
I don't know if you heard that story yet, Rick, but that's out on the feed too, right? And that's very dangerous.
Disaster, eh?
That's dangerous. That's our fucking drinking water, people.
Yeah.
That's the Great Lakes system. Exactly. Right. So I don't know if the natives are going for it or not, but there's big money at stake. Right. So that's a huge story you should look into, Rick, because you poison the water, you poison us.
Yes,
you got bigger problems.
It's going to happen too. See the news today? They had all these old this whole fucker. Sorry, this guy from the Weather Network. Every year, he's an old guy. Every year he predicts the weather, and he's wrong every year. And now he was on there today. I haven't seen him yet, but today he was on, and he's saying this is why it's so warm in December. And we got no snow. It's because of climate change. We have to reduce the carbon. We have to stop driving cars. That's what he was saying today. Well, listen, if you're listening out there, I'm predicting January, February will be the coldest weather ever. And lots of snow. I'm predicting. I'm predicting that. That's my prediction. January, February is going to be the coldest weather ever. And it's going to be lots of snow. I'm glad I work at home, Rick. I don't have to deal with it. I don't care, but some people that have to go to work, it kind of sucks,
Yeah.
I parked the car in the garage. It's got no snow on it. I hate cleaning snow off a car. But that's what this guy's predicting. He's saying that's because of climate change. These guys are. I'm telling you. They're poisoning everybody, and people believe it. Like the a lot of my family there, they're all the shot in the arm there. They're all saying it's good, and I'm telling them it causes cancer. It's proven fact right now. The evidence is there. It causes
Yeah,
cancer.
we really can't talk about that on here, John, because
Okay. And I said,
but
stop watching
what we should say
CNN.
is you absolutely have to do everything the government tells you and get extra. Just to be sure.
I told him to stop watching CNN. Even my sister, I said, stop